Hello and welcome to FamilyCraft. This is FamilyCraft Dad and I am here to do a tutorial for you guys. Yeah, that's right, a tutorial. I have been working on learning a new tool called VoxelSniper. And take a look at some of the crazy things you could do with it. This was my first little experiment. I first terraformed the land, then I wanted to play around with custom trees. And I made that guy there. And then I learned that there's actually a tree brush that you can just kind of like splatter trees everywhere. It's great. But I don't want to get into too much all at once. But what I do want to do is give you guys a bit of a crash course to get you started if you're interested in doing this sort of thing. The first thing you need to know about VoxelSniper is that this is not a client-side plugin. You can't just install this on your computer and do a single-player world and go crazy with VoxelSniper. You have to have a server. Now, you can create a local server on your computer and make sure you install the Spigot version of Minecraft server. And that way you can install Buget plugins. It will allow you to do all these crazy things, but you have to have a server. You can't do it client-side. I can't stress that enough. You will have a hard time trying to install it on your Forge or whatever that you have on client-side. So I figured I'd give you guys that heads up first before we get started on how to use this thing. Now that you've got your nice new Spigot server with VoxelSniper all installed and ready to go, you are in your new world and you are sitting here and you're going, now what? What do I do from here? Nothing's changed. You might have looked up and saw, hey, I've got commands. I could do this like /v stuff and /b. You could set all these things and nothing changes. What do you do? I don't understand. That was me. Okay, I was lost. Well, I found out all you have to do. You need an arrow and you need gunpowder. Those are your two main tools. And no matter what you do, you can't do a darn thing without those two things in your inventory. And you wouldn't believe, it must have took me about 15 minutes just floating around the world, changing those commands and stuff and being like, what on earth? I can't do anything. The things you're supposed to know and people just assume you know when you're looking up tutorials and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm setting out to do on this. I'm trying to give you guys a nice crash course to get you started. So yeah, first thing first, you get your arrow and you get your gunpowder. And then you got all sorts of commands to try to control what happens when you have this arrow. And that's what I'm going to try to show you really, really quickly. All right, well, I cleared out an area for us to be able to mess about and try some brushes and such. So here we go. We're going to first show you guys how to create your first basic brush. So all brushes start with /B. And we're going to do a ball, which is another B. And we're going to say it's a material. I'll get more on what that is later. We'll get into the details. But here's your basic brush. I just want to show you guys some things that you can start with. And then you've got to select your material. The easiest way to do this is if you see a material you want. In my case, I want some stone. You just point at it and hit /V. That stands for voxel. And you're choosing your voxel. The other way to do it is to use the Minecraft block ID. And so you got V0, which is air, V1, which is stone, V2, which is grass, V3 is dirt. You get the idea. So we're going to go back to stone. All right. And we've got, so right now, to see what you've got, you hit VS, by the way. That gives you the status of your brush. So you got VoxelSniper current brush settings, default tool, brush type ball, brush size 6, performer material, that's the M I said earlier, and voxel is stone. So we got a brush size 6. You might be asking how you change that. You just hit /B and say 4, brush size 4. All right, and now I've got the arrow tool selected, and I right click on the earth. Boom. I've got a brush size 4 ball, and the brush size is the radius. It's not the diameter, it's the radius. So this is actually an 8 block diameter. So boom. See? And you can kind of just go crazy just adding bits and bobs like on this, like start a little mountain or whatever. So that one's kind of fun. We also got different types of brushes. We got brush type disc, which basically will just add a disc. See? Now, you might be asking yourself, what does the gunpowder do? And in the case of brushes, If I have the arrow selected and I point on flat ground like this, it goes into the ground. If I use the gunpowder brush, I right click and it goes on top of the block I picked. All right. So basically the arrow makes it happen on the level of the block you picked. The gunpowder makes it go on top of the block you pick. Does that make any sense? Yeah, it took a little while for me to wrap my head around it. So if it doesn't make sense to you, play around with it. It'll sink in. Just give it some time. Now I've shown you the basic standard material brush. The next one you might want to play with, say you look at this little hill mountain thing you create and you're like, yeah, I want to smooth that out. It doesn't look like a natural mountain. What we do is we say brush, E for erode type of brush, and then you give it a preset. There's multiple presets for erodes. The one we're going to use right now is called melt. And the brush size still counts. So our brush size is 4. So it's only going to affect a radius of 4 area. But what we're going to do is I'm going to right click and watch. It kind of melts away the land and kind of erodes into it, which is kind of handy. Now we got other ones. We have BE fill, which basically will take, say, this area right here. See, you got blocks over here, and you got a little hole kind of thing right there. Watch, when I click it, it kind of attempts to fill the hole. See that? That's what fill means. So it kind of attempts to fill the hole. All right, which is pretty cool. And say you want to make it a little bit bigger. We got BE lift. And what lift does is kind of brings the voxels up to you in your direction. So it kind of pulls it away. And actually, what's kind of fun is if you switch to gunpowder, it pushes it away. So you can really go crazy and make a really nice mountain. Now take a look at this thing. What's wrong with it? It's all jagged, and I mean, that might be what you're going for, like a really rough terrain. But most Minecraft terrains are much more smooth than that. And that's why we have the Erode tool smooth. Let's take a look at what that does. It kind of takes away the rough edges. Any block that's kind of outstanding, it breaks it and makes it go away. It doesn't work super well. Like, for instance, you would expect a smooth brush to take this section right here where you've got 2 blocks and it would kind of like take away that block right there. It's just not going to do it. In fact, if you use it too much, you end up with really square looking areas. So you have to use it to basically get rid of the rough edges. That's kind of what it does. And then you got to use the other tools to smooth it out even further. So you have to keep on getting used to flipping between all those. And then you can make yourself a nice little mountain. Now, let's say you took the time and you made yourself a nice little hill using all the tools, so the erode tools and the brush tools, made yourself a hill or a mountain or some kind of crazy thing you've created. And it's just a stone thing here. It doesn't, the materials just don't work very well here. And you may have paused my video and went nuts and tried to add grass. But here, I'm going to give you a tool that's really going to help out a lot to make things look more naturally Minecraft. Okay, what happens usually with a hill like this? There's usually like 2 or 3 layers of dirt on top, and then it goes down into stone and various materials, right? Well, watch this. We've got brush over, all right? And then we're going to pick grass, all right? And watch this. I'm gonna paint on a 3-level deep grass bit. Watch. Boom. Now, those are 3-level deep. So watch, if that's the default is 3 levels. So if I break this, see, the stone's still down there. Take a look at that. All right. So that's really useful to make more natural terrain. So you can just like paint it right on like that. But say this area, you only want it 1 deep. You want to have some of that stone showing. So what we could do is we could go B over and then depth 1. All right. Depth set to 1. Now watch, I'm going to do an over. And see how it only goes down 1? It leaves these stone bits here. If I cover this, those just turn into it, but this does not. So it's a really handy tool. All right, so there's one more thing I want to show you guys. There's one little problem with VoxelSniper, at least that I've found so far. And that is if you use the erode tool around these kind of leaves here, it causes issues. Watch, I've got the erode lift. And watch this. Look how crazy that is. It doesn't quite build right. And in order to actually take care of this, you got to get rid of all the leaves. And we're not going to do this. No, we're not going to go around just smacking all these. So I'm going to show you a nice new tool. All right, so the tool that we're going to use to fix that is considered a mat to mat. And what that is a specific kind of performer, as they're called. Remember that little M at the end of our little brush thing here? Watch, we got B for ball, and an M we usually have. Well, what we do is we throw another M on there, and it's mat to mat. See how it says performer mat to mat there in green? What that basically means is you're going to be replacing a material with another material. And so first you got to pick your block that you want to use, your voxel, which I'm going to say air because we want to get rid of this thing. And then we got to pick the block that we want to replace, which would be this. And you hit VR. See? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my brush pretty big. We're going to say 15, okay? And when I right click this little guy, boom, it's gone. Boom, it's gone. Now, you might notice that there are these long ones left. So all you got to do is /VR on that. And now you're getting rid of your double plants. Very handy. Very, very handy indeed. So before you get started on a big project, you may actually want to take the time and just clear this kind of stuff out and get rid of it. So you can always put it back later. You can paint it on back really fast, but you just fly around and just kind of get rid of it like this. And that way you don't have to contend with it and mess with it. And you could just, you know, erode all the day long and not have any issues, which is really nice indeed. Well, that's it for the basics. On our next tutorial, we're going to get talking about data values. So far, we've only put blocks down that are based on ID, but there's also data values involved. And so, yeah, stay tuned for that one. The next one is going to be a lot of fun. And we might start talking about trees as well, custom trees. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. And until next time, this has been FamilyCraft. Toodles.